Okay, so I want to take a quick step back for the in the in to play devil's advocate to the listener who's hearing this, who's like, these guys, they've just got stars in their eyes. They're snowed, they're true believers, and they don't actually see clearly what's going on. They're intoxicated in some way.
Hmm.
So for that man or woman who's listening, who hears
Yeah,
us talking about things like honor and sovereignty and truth and
yeah,
and government and lies and all this, they hear the big picture philosophy and like, I don't know that I believe that. It's just some digital funny money,
yeah.
like, let's speak to that person for a second who's listening
Sure.
who feels that way.
Well, the first thing I would say to somebody like that is, I can't make you believe. You have to put in the work. And people say this about Bitcoin, like
Yeah.
you have to put in at least 10 hours to get started. And then if you're interested, you'll put in 100 and then 1,000 and then maybe even as much as 10,000 hours because then you'll be crazy like Will and I, and you
Like,
won't be able
can
to,
confirm.
you won't be able to stop studying it, but you've got to put in some work. This is just like the good, honest work that we've been talking about. You can't get it for free. You can't have somebody, if you were a skeptic about the necessity of eating food and you didn't want to eat food and you were getting all weak and I'm standing here saying, no, eat food, trust me, it'll give you energy. You say, well, it just sounds hokey to me. I don't see the idea of putting something in your mouth and chewing and swallowing it. It only comes out the back end anyways. Like, so if you've got someone who's a real skeptic about it, they have to put in some amount of work. They have to invest something. It doesn't have to be your money, although I definitely recommend, as part of the learning journey, getting yourself some Bitcoin, whether you earn it
Yeah.
or buy it, so that you can see how it works. But the very first part is you've got to be prepared to study it, and you've got to be and everyone learns in different ways. So whether you're asking questions of people, there's lots of people who are prepared to answer questions for free in live forums, or whether you're reading articles or books or listening to podcasts, you do have to engage in this question of what is money? What is real money? What is pure money?
Yeah.
Where does money come from? What purpose does it serve? How does Bitcoin work? Is it money? Does it meet these definitions of money?
Mhm.
And if you're not prepared to really answer those questions, if you just say, I'm going to take it on faith that what the US government says or what my government says in my geography is money, pieces of paper with numbers written on them, that the one that's worth 100 is the same size piece of paper as the one that's worth one, but one's worth 100 times as much as the other. And like, why? Because you say so, because you've cast a magic spell to say it is, and you'll beat
Mhm.
people up if they don't obey your magic spell. Well, that's not the argument from reason. That's the argumentum ad baculum, right? The argument from force, from the threat of hitting you with a stick.
Authority.
Yep. Right. And so once you start asking these questions, it is a rabbit hole, right? You're starting down this one-way function, and you may get scared along the way, but you will find that as you ask more questions, you get very good answers to your questions from the Bitcoin
Mhm.
community. Not necessarily every single Bitcoiner is going to have the best answer for you every time. Not necessarily everyone's going to tell you the truth. Not everyone's going to know the truth. There will be lots of people from the cryptocurrency and communities, I can assure you, who will be trying to tell you Bitcoin's not good. I've got something better. Trust me, give me your money. If you already
Mhm.
have Bitcoin, they'll be saying, give me your Bitcoin. I'll give you this thing that's better, trustworthy. But if it really was
Mhm.
better, why would they be giving you this thing that was better for something worse? You might want to
Yes.
ask yourself that question. But there's a learning curve, and that learning curve, just like learning to walk, you fall down, you scrape your knee before you can run. There's a learning curve in which you'll probably make some mistakes along the way, and so you might want to be a little bit cautious, and you want to learn from other people's mistakes. Lots of people in the Bitcoin community will have said, oh, here's the mistake I made of buying other cryptos, or of not holding the money
Mhm.
securely and trusting somebody else to hold it. There's a whole responsibility regimen that comes around Bitcoin. I mean, there's a saying in the community called "not your keys, not your coins." Right? If you don't
Mhm.
take custody of your Bitcoin yourself by putting it in an address that only you can access because only you have this private key to it, then someone else has access to it, and someone else might steal it from you. So this is an
Mhm.
unstealable form of property, but only if you use it in the proper way, not if you leave it in somebody else's hands to say, please don't steal it. So there's all these responsibilities that come with it. There's a lot to learn. It's different than anything else you've ever seen before. And so it's going to
Yeah.
require that you bend your thinking. And for me, I think a lot of the disappointments that I've had in people who were curious, but then backed off, was they just weren't really prepared to want to understand how things are different. They're kind of comfortable in this world where somebody, the government says, don't worry, we're going to take care of you, trust us. And they trust them. And whether or not the government does take good care of them or not, they take care of them in some ways, they abuse them in other ways. They say, you know, that's just enough for me. I'm actually on the receiving end of the Cantillon effect, you know, like financial advisors or things like that, where it benefits them that people can't save their money soundly. And it benefits them that people have to come to them and gamble it on stocks and bonds and preferred stocks and options and all these other kinds of derivative instruments. That's how they make their money. With Bitcoin, you don't need to gamble your money. You just hold on to it and save it. You don't need to give it over to an advisor who's going to charge you for it, whether they make or lose money for you, whether they even keep up with inflation. I mean, like my guy gets paid even if he underperforms inflation. So I actually lost money, yeah. Right? But you would have lost even more if I didn't invest it for you. So if I get back to your question, it's like, if you want to learn about Bitcoin, you have to put in work. Just like if you want to learn how to do anything in this world well, you're going to have to put in work. It's not somebody else tells you, trust me, it's good. And if you're untrusting, all the more reason. Like the beauty about Bitcoin is it is completely transparent. It's a completely naked system. It's free open source software based off of proven mathematical formula, which you can test for yourself, and you can push yourself right to the very limits of human knowledge on it for free. Like, not free of work, but nobody's going to charge you anything to read the source code. Nobody's going to charge you anything for all of these incredible resources about learning about cryptography and peer-to-peer networking and how all these things work. So you can learn it for yourself if you put in the work. And some people can help you get through it faster if you pay them, presumably. But this is something that you've got to do the work yourself on. And you realize that's true about everything. Right? That's the silly example that I gave at the beginning about food. You know it because you've been eating food all your life. But if you suddenly came to it new, it might seem silly to spend money on food. Mm-hmm. But of course, you'd be coming at it from some alternate world where you maybe didn't need it before and just didn't realize how badly you needed it. I mean, I think the better example is some kind of highly nutritious food, because we do today see a lot of people suffering from malnutrition. Even in the West, they're obese, right? Mm-hmm. And they're eating things that are not good for them. And they might ask, and they might not even be aware of what's good for them. There's all these crazy diets going around because it's clear that them eating what they think they should be eating is not working for them. So people are aware that something's not working out right for them, but they don't have all the answers. Bitcoin's easier to verify than some diet, because there's many diets that'll work for you for a little while, but you don't know what their long-term health consequences are, and they don't seem to work for a very long period of time for people. Like
they don't work for everybody.
Yeah, and they don't work for you. Bitcoin works the same way for everybody else. It doesn't even know that people exist, right? It just exists, and that's good enough for it.